Hello, everyone. My name is Abiola Agoro, and welcome to my podcast. Now, I am still having issues naming this. Why? Because I have problems. But not to worry, we will have a title soon. And if you're listening to this after we have the title, I hope you think we did a good job. Now, I think I have all the settings right. We are going to be talking about a couple different things that have been questioned and have gotten a very excited set of responses from on one of the last lives we did, as well as on a mini post that I did. So, first up, we're going to talk about the CIA because for some reason, many of you guys absolutely love this, and I got messages and all sorts of questions and other things. So if you've seen the clip, go watch it. If not, basically every single year, the CIA is required to release classified documents that are 25 years or older. Now, this goes from documents that are, about basic things like, travel to deliberate CIA operations that have been utilized throughout the world. So there was kind of some controversy on somebody who was commenting saying that this isn't true, blah, 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 blah. But they don't know about the Freedom of Information Act. So the Freedom of Information Act was passed in 1960. You just gonna walk on my iPad? Really, Pickles? The Freedom of Information Act was passed in 1966. And what it basically did, Pickles. Okay, Pickles is standing on. For people listening on audio, Pickles is currently trying to lick my face, and now Delilah's putting her butt on me because that's the world we live in. Okay, thank you guys. Pickles, I can't film if you keep doing this. No, and you just rub your eye booger on my white top. Pickles, this is rude. Okay, guys, this. Why, Pickles? Why? I probably should not have tried to do this podcast on the floor because I always forget. Once I sit on the floor, none of the dogs respect me. So they put their booties all up on me. Now, where was I? So this is from the Freedom of Information Act passed in 1966 that requires for federal agencies to make their information public after a certain amount of time, which it can be considered safe. So after 25 years, most of the time you're going to see that the operations that were going on are not ongoing to the same extent and don't need the same kind of levels of intense protection. Echo, come here. Come on. Don't you dare go swimming, Delilah. So it's kind of a fascinating aspect in a lot of ways because, there are so many things that you learn about that are crazy, right? And some documents can take up to 75 years to be declassified, but typically, without special exception, all documents, again, Pickles is trying to lick me, all documents that are not special have to be declassified within this time frame, and they release them every single year. So what's fascinating, like I was saying before, are some of the different kinds of operations that were going on and certain kinds of instructions given out. Now, typically a lot of people know about various aspects of CIA acts and information because of the field manuals that have been published, every so on and so forth. In the 1940s, there were a lot of field manuals that the CIA decided to disperse. One of which is probably the most popular one that I think most people know about, and that is the CIA Manual of Trickery and Deception. This came out in Oh no. Where did it just go? It just disappeared. I'm fairly sure that it was 1944, and Pickles has decided to sit on the recording panel, girl. No, I think you just played a sound. Oh my God, you are so disrespectful. Okay. So the manual, I'm fairly sure it came out in 1944, if I remember correctly. but something on here I'm seeing is 1947. So sometime in the 1940s, we know this manual came out and was used and dispersed, and it taught literally about ways to use trickery and deception for the sake of field operations. I, however, have a higher interest in the simple sabotage field manual and in the morale operations field manual. Now, the morale operations field manual is one that I know for a fact was in 1943, and it talks about not only what kinds of people you should try and attack the morales to infiltrate whatever you're trying to infiltrate, but the ways in which you should infiltrate them. And in the table of contents, it literally says, very literally, types, general channels, personal contact, rumors is a section just on how to use rumors, false leaflets, pamphlets, and graphics, so how to disperse those and what they should be used for, freedom stations, forgery, bribery and blackmail, coordination of MO channels and implements. And there's so much stuff on here that is not necessarily shocking. I think if you're somebody who's been in the civil rights space or in an activism space or just any kinds of these spaces that have to deal with going up against systematic oppression, you are going to understand these things. But the crazy thing is how some of these issues are so intangible until you get something like this. Even with this kind of a manual, somebody could easily argue that they didn't start a whisper campaign to get somebody thrown out of power. It's something that's very easy to fight against because the way that they do it is primarily through verbal methods. And if you don't have stuff in physical methods, aside from the physical propaganda we've seen, then again, you may not have a great legal argument. I'm going to turn... I don't know whether you heard that snort. I'm going to turn to one of these pages to talk about it. The rumors page is on page 14, and all of these documents that I talk about will be on our library, Disruptor Library, through Issue, and you can go read them, download them, whatever. We try and keep resources as free as possible and as plentiful as possible whenever we can. Okay, so this is page 10. I should be doing this on my computer and my iPad. So in this section, it says, a rumor is an unauthenticated, unofficial story or report represented and transmitted as fact. Two broad types of rumors can be differentiated. Subversive rumors, which play upon the emotions and attitudes of their audience for the purpose of undermining morale, and rumors which seek primarily to mislead and deceive. Section B. Subversive rumors against the enemy are used to exploit the fear and anxiety of those who have begun to lose confidence in military success. Delilah, please do not step on the microphone. To instill false optimism and to cause, thank you for the kiss, Delilah, and to cause popular antagonism to civil and military leaders, to create division among racial and political, religious, and military groups within a country, and between the peoples of allied countries, to cause enemy populations to distrust their own news sources, to lead civilian populations to precipitate... You're making me stutter, Delilah, because you're putting your ass on me. To precipitate financial, food, and other crises by panicky reactions. They literally say panicky. And to create confusion and dismay. You just knocked the microphone down, Delilah. And dismay by presenting a welter of contradictory reports. So, again, this is very literally giving you how rumors can be extremely effective as a tactical strategy. Next section says, in addition to the above, rumors may be used to cause diversionary or impotent enemy actions by revealing false information about our plans and capabilities. So these are things that at the time period, if you had said, hey, the CIA is like literally infiltrating us and spreading rumors on something, they would have said, whatever, like you're making it up, you're gassing it. But once these documents are released, it not only is able to validate some of the ways in which people were suspicious that their organizations were being harmed and their movements were being harmed, but it also tells you how they think. And it's important to understand when you're talking about these organizations, how they're functioning and how they're creating stuff. So that's one part that I really was excited to talk about. I will probably go into this more on a separate episode, maybe, because I think it's something that we can talk so much more about and continue to look into. Now, something I want to talk about as well, because I think the video will be released at the same time I release this, is credence values. So, credence values, quick summary if you didn't see the video, are what I like to call a gauge for perceived truth or believability. In the video, I give an example of makeup because I think that's an easy example, but we'll say, what's a different example that I could use to kind of talk about this? We'll say this. So, if Donald Trump were to come out and say that he saw the sun set purple, right? Something very simple. Most people's credence levels that are at least on a more moderate, progressive, liberal, leftist side are going to say, because their credence level, their gauge for believability when it comes to Donald Trump is extremely high. So, in order to be believed, Donald Trump, due to his history and due to his continued antagonizing of everything, would have to give a lot of evidence to be taken seriously. Whereas if Joe Biden right now came out and said, hey, I saw the sun turn purple, the credence level for people, again, on that moderate, progressive, liberal, leftist side are going to have a lower credence level because they don't believe that Joe Biden has a reason to lie about that. Now, this is a very generic example, obviously, because it does not take into the significant complexities of both parties having a severe detrimental amount of lies and other ways in which they misrepresent information. And this happens across the entire political sphere. It's not even just a two-party issue. It's a political system issue. But just a basic understanding of it is that credence levels, again, gauge how you're willing to believe somebody and how much evidence they're required to give you for you to believe them. And the reason why I talk about this so much is not only because I'm a philosophy buff. Those of you who don't know, I did get my bachelor's in philosophy with a focus in mind-brain studies, as well as a little stint in neuroscience. I almost had a neuroscience double major, but the person heading up the department at Boston University left the exact year that I started after he convinced me, if you're listening to this, sir, after he convinced me to do the neuroscience track. Thank you, Pickles. Pickles just kissed me again. To do the neuroscience philosophy combined track. But while I'm somebody who has, in my own methods, I can talk my shit and respect myself, a brilliant mind, that does not mean that every aspect of study is my strong suit. And math is not my strong suit. I do not like math. I love physics, but I hate the math aspect, which is kind of fascinating. I like the philosophy side of physics rather than the calculatory side of physics. And so that bit me. It bit me poorly. And so I had to leave the program in order to preserve my GPA and make sure that I could actually get through school, especially with the pandemic coming up right after and everything else that happened. But I have such a deep love for neuroscience, and I've been working on very gently trying to go back and figure out how I can do the program because I love it. Now, that was an unnecessary aside. But the point is, when we talk about philosophy, it is very literally thinking about how we think and how our brains work. And credence levels are so essential to talking about the way that people function, because from a sociological perspective, if you don't understand why people think and how they think, you can't actually understand how to approach them and how to navigate whatever problems we're currently having in the world due to that. Pause. I need to make sure I see the other dogs. Echo! Sorry, I always got to check and make sure that I know where my pupperoos are. Butterball and Echo are behind me. So I think something that I always am kind of pushing towards is getting people to understand, and it's a research project I'm doing independently right now. I have like 5 research projects, and if you're an academic, you understand this. But one of them is understanding how people's perceptions affect the way in which they receive information. Now, Evan, the bioethicist, whom I love on TikTok, you guys should go follow them, talks about disinformation and how it's a threat to public health. This is their thesis on what it was done on. And to me, disinformation and all of these pieces, after learning more from them and their account, is exactly in relation to credence levels, because it tells you how you're willing to believe somebody and what they give to you based on your perception of their ability to tell the truth, or just based on kind of how you perceive something, generally speaking. So when we're talking about racial justice, this is exactly in relation, because if somebody from, again, we'll say black people, or I think black and indigenous people deal with a certain type of disbelief on the same way that like Asian people deal with a different type of disbelief. So we're going to talk about black and indigenous disbelief because it's kind of similar in the way it functions, and I'll do another episode about why I say that. Because every group of people has a certain level of, how do you say, mm, perception based biases that are different. And if we don't address them individually, we can't really effectively deal with it. So I'll talk about that later. But back to what I was saying, say that if a black person says, hey, this white person did something racist, or if an indigenous person says, hey, this person did something that was, it was filled with anti-indigeneity. Somebody may say, if they're white and they're from a white background and they only have an internalized level of respect for other white people giving them their information, then their credence level is going to be really high. And so trying to get to them on a racial justice level is going to be very hard until we can have them deal with their own credence levels. And that doesn't mean that we should just have the white person that they trust try and teach them, because all that's going to do is Butterball, stop it, is it's going to reinforce this idea that we should let people continue navigating in the way they're navigating and meet them where they're at. But when it comes to something like this, we have to actually push them forward. Meeting people where they're at when it comes to this kind of work is only effective if it's thinking in terms of the fact that you have to give them information in an accessible way, and also be willing to understand how to teach them in their own individualized way. But if we think of meet them where they're at as in just let them do things in the way that makes them most comfortable, we're not actually doing racial justice. And so understanding credence levels is so vital to all of this. So we're going to go ahead and end this first episode here. If you're watching the video again, Pickles is giving kisses. Hey, calm down. Don't bother the cat. She doesn't want to talk to y'all. Thank you. And that will be all. Again, I am Abiola Agoro, and thank you for joining me on our episode. Make sure that you subscribe and stay tuned. You can find our TikTok information, Instagram information at AHBEEOLAH. It is the phonetic spelling of my name. Pickles, can you chill? All right, I'm going to go take care of Pickles. That's it for y'all. Bye.